Welcome to our channel, where we explore the darkest corners of the unknown. Tonight, we have a chilling tale that will send shivers down your spine. Imagine finding yourself stranded in a desolate train station, where the only company is the relentless clanging of an approaching train. Get ready to dive into a world where reality bends and shadows come alive. This is The Last Train. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our spine-tingling stories. The old train station had been deserted for decades. Its peeling paint and rusting iron tracks were remnants of a bygone era. It was a foggy November night when Ellie, desperate and lost, stumbled upon the station while looking for shelter. She was a young woman with nowhere to go, her phone dead, and her car broken down miles away. The chill in the air made her shiver as she approached the dilapidated building, hoping for a safe haven. As Ellie pushed open the creaky door, it groaned in protest. Inside, the station was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The scent of mildew and decay was thick in the air. Ellie hesitated, but decided to wait there until morning. She settled onto a dusty wooden bench and tried to ignore the unsettling silence. An hour passed. The only sound was the occasional drip of water from the leaking ceiling. Ellie tried to read a book to pass the time, but her eyes kept darting to the empty tracks. It was then that she heard it, a distant, rhythmic clanging, like the sound of an approaching train. Confused, Ellie stood up and looked around. The tracks were empty, and no train should be running at this hour. The sound grew louder and more insistent, and she felt a tremor in the ground beneath her feet. The flickering lights began to stutter, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. Just as Ellie was about to leave, a thick, black fog began to seep into the station from the tracks. The fog moved with a life of its own, curling and writhing as it spread across the platform. The rhythmic clanging turned into a thunderous roar, and the ground vibrated with the force of an approaching train. Panic set in as Ellie tried to find an exit. She ran toward the door, but it slammed shut behind her. She was trapped. The fog enveloped her, and the temperature dropped rapidly. Her breath became visible in the freezing air. The roar of the train grew deafening. Suddenly, the station was illuminated by the headlights of the train, cutting through the fog. Ellie could see it now, but it wasn't an ordinary train. Its engine was massive and twisted, with blackened metal that seemed to bleed shadows. The carriages were old and dilapidated, but there were no passengers, only empty, darkened windows that seemed to peer back at her. The train screeched to a halt, and the doors slid open with an unnatural slowness. Ellie was paralyzed with fear, unable to move as a ghostly figure emerged from the darkness. It was a conductor, but his face was obscured by a shadowy hood. The figure extended a hand toward her, beckoning her to board. Ellie wanted to scream, but her voice was caught in her throat. The fog seemed to whisper to her, promising escape if she just got on the train. Desperation won over fear, and she took a trembling step forward, her legs moving as if controlled by some unseen force. The train was a macabre parody of a normal carriage, filled with broken seats and flickering lights. The air was thick with an oppressive darkness. The ghostly conductor stood at the front, staring straight ahead. The train began to move, gliding along the tracks with an eerie silence. Ellie looked out of the windows, but all she saw was the dense fog and darkness. Time seemed to stretch, each second dragging into eternity. The train sped faster and faster, but it felt like it was going nowhere. The clanging noise started again, louder and more insistent. Ellie's heart pounded in her chest. She turned to the conductor, but he was gone. In his place was a figure she recognized, a shadowy version of herself, eyes hollow and empty, staring back with a dreadful vacancy. The realization hit her like a cold wave. This was not a journey she would return from. The train was an eternal trap, a cycle of despair and darkness. As the clanging reached its deafening crescendo, Ellie's own shadowy figure reached out, pulling her into the void. With a final, heart-stopping jolt, the train came to a stop. The fog vanished, leaving the station empty once more. The only sound was the distant clanging of the train's departure, echoing through the silent night. The old train station remained a desolate relic, its stories lost to time. But on foggy nights, if one listened closely, they could still hear the distant, rhythmic clanging of the last train, eternally seeking new passengers for its unending journey through the shadows. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey through the last train. We hope you enjoyed the chills and suspense. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. What did you think of this story? Do you have any theories about the cursed train? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, the darkness is always lurking. Stay tuned for more eerie tales and unsettling stories. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked.